Hello, and welcome to the 6th edition of Nicolls Road News. I'm Nicholas Donatic. Let's start off with today's headlines from Kira Dennehy.
Long Beach police are investigating a series of BB gun shootings after a dark-colored van pulled up alongside victims. Police are investigating the shootings as a crime of opportunity rather than a hate crime. 24-year-old Uber driver Daniel Chima has been charged with manslaughter in connection with the death of 15-year-old Huntington native Ryan Mullen, who died after he and two of his friends paid Chima $40 to car surf in his Toyota Highlander SUV. Here at Stony Brook University, the school paper, The Statesman, randomly surveyed 50 students to see how they were reacting to this midterm election season. 46 said that they were registered to vote, and 42 confirmed that they plan to vote. Make sure to get out and vote, Seawolves.
For the last 9 months, survivors of the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida, have led the fight nationwide for new gun control legislation. Jonathan Puya tells us that their efforts are about to be tested at the ballot box.
They gathered. They organized.
They say that tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence.
And they demanded changes to the nation's gun safety laws. The March for Our Lives movement, created by student survivors of the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, heightened the debate about gun control after witnessing the deadliest shooting at a high school in the United States.
My niece was the second to last person killed in the shooting, and it was quite a traumatic and horrible day.
Enough is enough!
High school students in Long Island created a local chapter of the movement and hold their own rally in Huntington, New York on March 23rd. Since then, they have launched numerous initiatives to increase voting turnout and even endorse the Democratic candidates who promise to take the necessary steps to prevent future shootings.
We can't have another Parkland, we can't have another Pittsburgh.
We've also had an event called Town Hall for Our Lives before the primaries to really get a more informed decision on who the candidates are and what they're running for.
The movement's main goal was to attract more voters between the ages of 18 and 24, who traditionally have the lowest voting turnout. Only 20 to 25% of young voters participate in the midterm elections.
If you do not show up to the voting booths, everything that your generation cares about will have to wait another 5-10 years to even be discussed. So it is important.
Republican candidate for New York State Governor Mark Molinaro has scheduled one of his last rallies here at the Veterans of Foreign Wars building. Molinaro calls himself a supporter of the Second Amendment and common sense laws. But just as the other Republican candidates, it is very unlikely that he will attract a large percentage of voters between the ages of 18 and 24 because more than 57% of them identify as Democrats. Reporting from Center Ridge, New York, for Nicolls Road News, I'm Jonathan Puya.
Young people have historically had the lowest voter turnout among the electorate. In today's midterm election, both parties are trying to get young people to the polls, especially college students. Rosemary Ann has the story.
This time of year, campaign signs have been as plentiful as fallen leaves, and with good reason. Today is finally the day to cast your vote. The student-run SUNY Votes campaign, along with Ballot Ready, a data aggregation service, is educating young voters about candidates and helping them through the voting process. Through our website, students can create an unofficial ballot, find their polling location, and get a text or email reminder of their voting time.
I feel that the program is definitely a good idea, especially because a lot of young voters have just so much going on in their lives. The day for voting just sneaks up on them, and the next thing they realize is November 6th, and they have class, and they have work, and they don't really have the time to go stand at the polls for 2 hours on a day they didn't plan to.
Stony Brook students have also tried to boost voter turnout among young people.
This election is going to affect us the most, so it's really important that we get as many students out to the polls as possible. A lot of people just don't know how to register, where to vote, and all those things. So I think just being here to answer people's questions and get them aware of where to go and what to do on Election Day has been helpful.
This year, the Stony Brook polling location is at the Student Activity Center in Ballroom A.
The people that we elect now are going to affect our government and our society that we're going to take from our parents and our grandparents for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
According to a recent poll by the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy School, 4 out of 10 adults under 30 said they would definitely vote, which could mean the highest voter turnout rate for young people in decades. For Stony Brook News, I'm Rosemary Ann.
The Long Island Community Fellowship is not your typical house of worship. The West Babylon Non-Denominational Christian Church has been a mecca for religious LGBT Long Islanders since 2002. Nicolls Panisi has the story.
For Anita Frazier, finding a community that intersected her religious and sexual identities was difficult.
I grew up being a Catholic. I remember the day I came out. I was in church with my family, just got married to my first wife, and unfortunately the pastor found out, and immediately the sermon was changed about being an abomination.
This began her search for a new home. 10 years ago, she found Long Island Community Fellowship.
I knew the day I walked into that door, I felt loved.
Frazier is one of over 90% of LICF congregation members that identify with the community.
It's a shame, can I say, that on Long Island, this is the only church of its kind. I think there should be dozens and dozens and dozens more.
But does the LGBT community need more places like LICF? Nearly 50% of LGBT Americans are religiously unaffiliated. This is double the rates of non-LGBT people. For LICF, getting younger people involved is their biggest hurdle.
Every pastor that I've met and spoken with in any of these meetings is suffering from the same thing. There seems to be a gap of the 20s and the 30-year-olds and the teens involved in any church.
For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. The majority of Long Island Community Fellowship members are above the age of 40. In order to reach out to more youth, they'll be heading to universities such as Adelphi, Farmingdale, and Stony Brook to get their name out there. Reporting from West Babylon, my name is Nicolls Panisi.
Although social media has taken some of the sting out of political advertising this year, negative ads this election cycle are as plentiful as ever. Jim Lowe has the story.
Political advertisements have come a long way since 1952. In the years since, they've become increasingly more negative and often focus on attacking opposing candidates. However, some political science experts believe the shift might actually help candidates.
Generally, most negative advertisements in the political science literature are just anytime you have information about the opponent. And for the most part, they're actually more useful than positive ads. They tend to be more accurate in terms of information. People tend to learn more and remember negative ads more. And honestly, they give a better idea of the actual level of polarization between candidates.
Earlier this week, President Trump tweeted an inflammatory campaign advertisement, which divided the viewing audience and quickly gained over 6 million views on Twitter.
As social media grows in general, you see an increase in how many politicians or famous people in general use social media. So I think the amount of people you reach in a shorter amount of time increases. So it benefits them in order to reach these audiences.
A study done by Wesleyan University shows a 61% increase in 2018's negative advertisements in comparison to 2014. The data also shows a steady increase in production volume across the country.
Some political scientists have argued that campaigns probably spend too much on advertisements relative to maybe canvassing or other more face-to-face interactions. Advertisements tend to have very short-term effects. Like, I think at best estimates, maybe information you learn you'll forget in like 2 weeks, which is a big part of why campaigns run so many ads at the end.
According to Trump's campaign manager, the re-election campaign set aside at least $6 million to spend on advertisements for Republican candidates in the final weeks before midterm elections alone. For Nichols Road News, I'm Jim Lowe.
That's all we have for today's show. Please join us at 8 p.m. tonight on the School of Journalism's Facebook page for live election night coverage. And join us again next Tuesday to see what's happening right here on Nicolls Road. For Nicolls Road News, I'm Nicholas Donatic.